Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of My Way Conversations with Entrepreneurs Doing Business Outside the Box. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas, and super excited to be back with you for another episode today. I am thrilled about our guest, and it blows my mind sometimes how you can meet someone and the conversation just flows, and next thing you know, it's an hour and whatever later, and and we're going on and on and on, and then I'm like, oh God, sorry. So I'm excited to have her here tonight. Luckily, we got a lot of that chitter chatter out of the way. And tonight we're going to be focused on her entrepreneurial journey. Our guest tonight teaches coaches, consultants, professionals, and small business owners how to effectively build webinars and presentations. We're going to get into her journey. And we may or may not end up talking about balloon arches and a lizard named Leroy. So without further ado, let's welcome our guest tonight. Welcome, Cari. I'm so excited you could be here with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Jessica. This is awesome.
Is it fun? It's a whole dance party.
And it's so well done. And because sometimes you get invited to be on stuff like this and it's just essentially two people talking live on YouTube. But
yeah.
Obviously, you're a professional network, so you have the fancy graphics and the music and the whole we're queuing to the guests. And I feel very special now. So
listen, I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear that. I have to have a whole vibe before. Listen, when I used to do the show back, the Breakthrough show back in 2018, it was just this, we are live on Zoom. Hi, welcome. It was like this. Welcome to the show. My name is Jessica Dugas, and I'm really excited to have you. I can't do that anymore. I can't.
No, I totally understand. I go live every Thursday, and it's pretty much just me showing up going, hi, guys, I hope you had an awesome week. And then there's 5 points written on a notepad on my screen that I'm queuing.
That's all right,
to. But it's meant to be a very chill, non-professional thing. It's just me going live. It's not. But this is awesome. You've done an amazing job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm super excited to have you here tonight. Really quickly, for anybody that doesn't know you, I gave you a very short intro, but I would love for you to share with everybody who you are, what you do, where you're joining us from.
Absolutely. I'm Cari Brunton. I'm the owner of Red Bucket Events, and I'm coming at you from Oshawa, Ontario, which is an hour east of Toronto, for those of you going, where the heck is that? And so I am an event planner and a webinar strategist. So I work with my clients to help them achieve their business goals, either through planning a signature event that we execute that is designed specifically to address those goals, or if their goals are to reach more clients, then I train them in how to use webinars and presentations to launch their speaking strategy and consistently book new clients.
I love that. I love that. And one thing I really love about you and why I was so glad when you were like, let's connect, is because you're so fun. You're so much fun and you have a great vibe. And sometimes when we get into these presentations about how to be more entrepreneurial and how to do webinars and events and things, people they lose the fun. They lose the fun in the presentation. So have you always been kind of bubbly and extroverted, or is this something you had to train yourself to do?
No, this is pretty naturally me. I'm a really big believer in BU. I have the quote by Oscar Wilde on one of my that one, where it says, "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken." Yeah. I'm really bad at suppressing my own personality, to be honest. I've done it a little bit through here and there because, you're kind of, you get that mentality that you're going into professional environments and you're pitching businesses, trying to give them your services. They don't want you to be silly and goofy and crack jokes about geese and whatever else is floating around in your mind today. And they don't want to hear about how, your stepkids keep eating all the mini eggs and how you're just going to start a secret stash of them because you don't let yourself buy them once a year. They don't want, you get it in your head that they want the robot and not the person. And because it's business and because it's corporate. And so there I found I've sheltered my personality, but I've gotten to a point where I'm like, let's just let it all box.
Yeah.
Like, here I am. It's pop culture references. It's weird, silly, off the rails tangents. Like, here I am.
Yeah.
You're here for my event brain and all that stuff. You're just getting me out. The rest is extra.
It's just a bonus. It's what it is. I love that though. And I think so many of us have had that experience where either we struggle to be who we are because of outside chatter, or we have difficulty like kind of suppressing it, like you're talking about. I was kind of the latter, just feeling like out of place. And to be fair, there's one place on the internet where I still feel like that, and that's LinkedIn.
Yeah. LinkedIn is getting a little bit better, like slowly but surely. I actually really love LinkedIn. I hang out there probably more than I spend on any other platform.
Okay.
Just because I find that LinkedIn is where genuine business focused conversation happens. And I can be fairly left-minded. I like stats. I like details and clear sites and proactive plans and details and all those fun things. And so LinkedIn tends to be a place where people are talking more about strategy and this is how this works. Or at least I have awesome people in my feed. So I'm doing well on that front. And so I like that I can go over there and start a conversation where it's kind of just, so my LinkedIn strategy is terrible, and any LinkedIn strategist out there is going to be like, don't do that. Yeah. It's what works for me. And so basically I jump on randomly and go, this is what I'm thinking about today. And I write a post about it. So like the other day I was in a summit and I was thinking about how when a speaker's really, really good, you unplug your laptop and turn your camera off and mute yourself and take your laptop with you to the bathroom. Because you don't want to miss the speaker. And to me, that's a sign that the speaker's doing a really good job.
Right. It would be.
Right. Like that's not something normally people are going to talk about. But so then I went and I posted about that on LinkedIn. Like, obviously there's no picture of me in the bathroom. Like, like we're keeping it.
We didn't cross that line.
Although I did, like, when I was looking for a photo to accompany the post, I wasn't going to take one myself originally. And there's so many graphics on like Google and Unsplash and all this stuff. And it's people who are on the toilet with their pants pulled down and their laptop in their lap. And I was like, that's not what I want on my LinkedIn feed. Like, yes, that's kind of where this post is going, but that's not what I want. So I ended up just taking a picture of like my laptop on the bathroom counter. You can't even see me, kind of thing. But that's my LinkedIn strategy. It's very organic. It's very spur of the moment, but people like that they're genuine. I try to throw a lot of tips in along the way. So like along with that post, there was also some tips about, like, this is how you be that kind of speaker that people want to go to the bathroom with you.
Right.
Kind of thing.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. And I'm learning, but I'm following really great people on there. And I think for me, you and I had a conversation, yesterday about a little inner voice, and I have that little voice that, because you go to LinkedIn, because I think LinkedIn ultimately started off to be a very professional, like corporate sort of place. And so here I am. I didn't finish my degree. I felt like I didn't have the credentials to be there, and to be value. If that, like, it sounds so sad.
No, but it's true. And LinkedIn does still have that stiffness about it. Like I said, like the thing I like about it is that it's genuine conversation, but it's not like, I also, on the flip side, on Instagram, you'll see reels of me like goofing around. Like later today, a video is going up that's like, what's my number one productivity hack? Caffeine.
Yeah.
Which obviously is not a productivity hack. It's just honestly, it's my mentality towards productivity. I want to be really productive today. I'm going to have caffeine.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, it could be. I mean, we could. Who am I to knock what somebody's
every time management coach out there is like, no. but go ask them about productivity. It's not my specialty at all.
Yeah.
So so I am a little more jokey and a little more of the unfiltered self on Instagram than I am on LinkedIn. But LinkedIn is improving, and you'll see, and I'm starting to let more snippets of my own personality fly there, and I'm seeing more and more of that from my feed as well, which is really exciting, because I think some of us were feeling a little too stiff there. Yeah. It's just, you're right, it's not healthy, and it's so sheltering, and so here's me one step removed. And
Yeah.
I think that is a problem for a lot of people. I've especially seen it with a number of my clients who come on and they think they have to be the perfect robot during their webinars and presentations, to which I yell, stop that. And if I'm ever in a room with them, I will throw things at them while they do that. Nonsense. We'll throw soft things.
Can we do that on the camera here? Let me see if that works on camera.
My latest move is when I'm really frustrated is I now take my pencil and stab it really hard into the notebook so it looks like this.
Oh.
That's how you know that I'm frustrated. The only problem is that I end up with small pencil holes in my notebook. So I have to be kind of careful.
This did not work out, like, because the camera hole is so small. There it went. It's now on the floor.
Not bad, but yeah, I do think Zoom needs a feature where it says someone has just thrown an eraser at you instead of put a heart on stage.
I might, because I have a little for my morning show. I have a little swish that, because the morning show is so fast paced. I have a little swish that goes through between segments. I might have to make one of, like, a giant, like, wad of paper.
I like that.
Brittany's having some fun out there.
Yay! Hi, Brittany. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, I love it. Well, so we were talking about that little voice, and I want to talk about that for a minute with you because, My Way started last year, and we were talking about, the point was to talk about kind of that outside chatter of saying you can't do things that way and you going, watch me, and doing it anyway. But I think one of the things that we haven't even talked about enough is when that chatter comes from inside of us. And you have a very special chatter inside of you that I would love for you to describe to the people.
I do. And I think part of the reason I needed to develop this is I find it so much harder to deal with the chatter when it comes from inside of me. When people who are, when actual people who don't live in my head tell me things like, oh, you can't do that, you shouldn't do that, it's pretty much my favorite thing in the world to prove them wrong. Like, it gives me deep joy to do that. My mother would 100% line up and say, oh yeah, you want to get Cari to tell her to do something, tell her that she can't or shouldn't. And like, that's actually the only way to get her to do things, because I do not listen when people tell me to do things. And it's funny because I learned a whole psychology recently about how you can't tell people to do things because it's actually a natural reaction for us to want to not do that. So that was never as much of a struggle as the internal voice telling me, no, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. You're unprofessional. You're too silly. No one's going to hire you. No one's going to take you seriously. Everyone thinks you're a giant goofball, and no one's going to see that there is actual legitimate knowledge in there. And so I got to a point where I needed to see it as a separate piece of me. I couldn't just see it as part of myself. I needed to identify it as separate so that I would start to distrust that voice. And so thanks to Martha Beck's concept of the wizard and the lizard that she talks about in her book, Steering for Starlight, I have now modeled mine into a lizard. And his name is Leroy. And he is a angry French lizard, smokes like nonstop chain smoker, got the tilted beret on, and a one of those he's shirtless but he's wearing a brown sleeveless vest. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, it's kind of someone you would expect to see walking around in like the Newsies in the 70s, that kind of a look, but then add angry and French and frequently smoking to it. And picturing those things coming from this angry French lizard as opposed to being said by myself makes it a lot easier to say, you're an idiot. Shut up. In my case, is usually accompanied by a lot of swearing as well. He's right there, like he's very loud. So I get frustrated. And that just helps me separate it from myself and make it clear that it's not me. And it's okay to yell at him. And it's okay to kind of hate that voice and say, no, you don't get to win today. Yeah. And I'd love to say Leroy never wins and that Leroy lives in a sad basement corner where he's starving to death and he's got nothing left but those cigarettes. But that's not true. He's unfortunately alive and well.
Yeah.
But I am learning more and more how to quiet him and lock him in a cage for little periods of time. And just picturing him that way has really, really helped me see that's not you. That's there, but that's not worth listening to.
Right.
Also, like, even as I describe him, I understand that it looks ridiculous, but the ridiculousness of it helps.
Yeah.
right? It
Yeah.
helps you say, those aren't serious things.
Right. And after we talked yesterday, I really hardcore thought about this lizard and was like, look, this is such a great thing for those of us out there that are spiritual, like we're really into personal development or whatever, because this is the thing for me. When I got really deep into my personal development journey, I really started to have that heightened awareness, right? Like now I recognize every damn thing that I'm doing wrong in my life, right? And it can be really hard for us not to get into a space of blame and shame over these things that we're experiencing. So when we have that inner chatter, it can be challenging for us to go, that's not me, and not start feeling really bad about those things. Like I should know better than to think that I should. And so when you make it that outside entity, what an incredible tool that is for, leaders who are also, super heavy into personal development and having trouble getting out of that blame and shame of that inner chatter that never stops.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to say it's a perfect system. I'm not going to say it
Yeah.
always, like there's definitely days where I forget to stop and say, no, that's Leroy talking. That's not you.
Mm,
But there's also days where I'm like, no, that's Leroy talking. Leroy can go away and you can do what you want to do.
yeah.
And kind of move forward, or at least take a small baby step.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it works for me. I'm at some point I keep meaning to sit down and draw him so I can have a little picture of him on my wall that I can then stab with my pencil instead of my notebook. So I'm probably gonna have to make like 50 photocopies a year of this because it's gonna have a lot of holes in it. And I'm now thinking about it, thinking I'm gonna have to put something behind it to make sure I don't stab through to the wall. But I got to tell you, there's something oddly cathartic about just repeatedly stabbing paper.
I have a brilliant idea. I think because I know you do like the, coaching and things like that. And that's obviously a non-tangible serve, like it's not a thing. But I think you should come out with one product and one product only. And that is the Leroy Voodoo doll.
I was just thinking that if I had some kind of squishy thing that I could stab repeatedly and that anybody could, and then we could make it that anybody can stab. And
I'm here for it.
That's what you do when you're having a bad day and you're feeling it all, and you just stab till you feel better. And
I want to be the first customer. Please don't let anybody else buy that before me. I want to be number one.
Absolutely. I will find out who can make us a little foam stabbable lizard. I'm on that. If anybody watching this knows someone who can make me several small stabbable lizards. So it has to be some kind of soft, bouncy material, like essentially like a stress ball that I can repeatedly, without actually puncturing. Then
yeah,
if somebody has a lead on that, please send it to me and I will get those made.
Please, and thank you. The world needs this. That's all we have time for today, ladies and gentlemen. No, just kidding. Listen, I want to talk about your company, Red Bucket Events. Why is it? Where did the name come from, and how did you get to being like entrepreneur? Like, have you always been an entrepreneur? And so I guess start with that, and then tell us why the name of your company.
I definitely haven't always been an entrepreneur. It actually, running my own business wasn't even a thought that I had until I went back to college to do my postgrad. And so I was doing my postgrad for event management, and it just was like, I should be doing this as my own company. And I'm fortunate in a lot of ways. My brother and my father are both entrepreneurs. My father's been an entrepreneur my entire life. He's always had his own business. So I think that's really good, because I think a lot of people struggle with the whole, oh, you can't make a business successful. You can't.
Right.
I've never had that particular mindset, just because my father did it. It's obviously doable.
Right.
So actually having seen someone close to it do, like we see things in ads and stuff, but it's not until we know somebody personally who uses that face cream that we're like, oh, and then we actually consider it. It's like that.
Yeah, right.
That kind of course it's doable mindset from seeing him do it. But the idea itself didn't kind of kick in until I was in college years ago doing that postgrad. And fortunately, they actually had an entrepreneurship class. I will tell you that I hope that class has gotten better, because about 95% of it does not apply to like little bits of it were helpful. Like we had to do like a pitch presentation, and like that was good, but and kind of design the basis of a company for that pitch presentation. So that was helpful. But other than that, I'm looking at that class going, there's the, but to be fair, it's a half year course. That's obviously not the main focus because not everybody is going to go into
Right.
entrepreneurship from
Right.
there. And so from there, it was always something that was in my mind. And then I was working full time, and I had been in with this charity for a couple of years, handling all of their events. And it was starting to wear thin. I've never been a person who's great at doing the same thing repeatedly nonstop. Like school was fine, right? Because you're always, you take new courses, you learn new things. But once you get into the working world and you do the same thing every day or close to, or you're almost on a repeating cycle kind of thing, it starts to wear a little thin.
Right.
For some people love it.
Mm.
I'm the person over there going, I'm bored. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to be able to work on any event that I wanted, and to be able to do a wide range of different ones and have different ones every year kind of thing, instead of working on the same 3 ones every year.
Right.
And so that's when I started to put RBE together. And then actually, that was 2018. I started, and I started pitching and stuff like that, and nothing was really happening. And then I actually got laid off at the end of 2018.
Wow.
And so it was not the intention to go full time. I was applying for jobs all over the place, and it was the intention to still do it as a part time and grow it thing. But then the employer who had laid me off actually turned around and said, "Hey, do you want your job back?" And I was kind of like, "No, I don't."
Yeah.
And instead, what I said was, "Well, what if you become a client? Because you'll still get me, but it'll cost you less money, and I can still go and pursue other things." And they were like, "Great." And they ended up being a client
That's
for
awesome.
several years. And so all of a sudden I was in business.
Wow. I guess that happened. That
It
all
did,
flowed
and it was
really
like,
well.
it was kind of like, all right then. It's those moments where you look back and be like, you know what, the
Yeah.
universe had a plan for you, and you didn't know it at that moment, but the universe had a
Right.
plan for you.
Right.
And so, the very original incarnation of the business was just Brunton Events, and I knew that name wasn't going to stick because it made me nauseous. Because it's not anything. It's not exciting. It didn't trigger any feelings or emotions in me. And I was like, well, then how can my clients get excited about it? And that kind of thing. And I also, it's always been my goal to grow into an agency, a small
Right.
agency. And so the plan is to have other planners who work for me and things like that. So just calling it Brunton Events felt fake, and like setting myself up for, I'm going to have to change
Right.
when I get to that point anyway. But I didn't have a name yet, and I kept, I was asking friends to put input and stuff like that, and I hated everyone's suggestions. So, not because of their fault or anything like that. Just I wanted something very unique,
Yeah.
and that would set a branding tone. And one day, I was looking at this, and this little guy has been my pen holder for years.
Aw.
My red bucket. And one day I sat and I looked at it and I was like, you know what? Every time I have a really good idea, I have to write it down. So every time I have a good idea, I go to the bucket. And now every time my clients have a good idea, they can come to the bucket. And so that's where the bucket came from.
That's really cool.
And I actually love that. I love getting to tell that story. And I love that people take note of the name and that they find it and my branding memorable because of that, because it's not just a name and or a descriptor or something like that. It's something kind of unusual. And that's the tone I wanted to set.
I love that. And I want to recognize something that I heard you say about when you were deciding on the name, you were looking into the future at expansion. And that's something that I think many of us, especially as spiritual entrepreneurs, we're like, we just want to do what we love. So we just start doing what we love, and we don't set anything up for future expansion. Some of us are still learning the hard way and having to actually write things down. And because I sat down one day and I'm like, I couldn't easily bring a team on board. I couldn't easily, with however I had everything set up, I couldn't easily sell business. There was so much that I couldn't do. because I hadn't prepared. I wasn't setting things up for anything other than me always and forever.
Yeah.
And that's exhausting. You have to change everything. So I'm so excited for you that you saw that even in just the name. Like, did it work that way in other areas of your business as well? Did you kind of set yourself up for success and expansion?
To an extent.
Yeah.
Like I am still technically a solopreneur. I do have contractors and freelancers who I bring in on a per contract basis,
Mm.
and I'm still working towards having my actual employees. But it's something that I've kept in mind a lot and tried to make note of. Okay, how am I going to be able to incorporate another person into this?
Mm.
And it's one of those things where, because I haven't actually done it yet, I'm sure in many ways I'll fall on my face when I do it. But that's the way I learn, and that's the way I figure things out.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. Plus, it's so much easier to fall on your face like in private in front of like one person than it is to fall on your face like on a stage in front of many people,
Yeah.
which I have also done. So not literally, but figuratively, I've done some dumb stuff on stage. So I've made my peace with that.
Yeah.
So I think I've always been good at the bigger picture.
Mm.
The little details is a little harder for me. It's become a lot easier over the years. It's becoming an event planner and stuff like that. Like now when you put me on site, I can see all the little aspects and why is that fork 4 inches to the right? And, all of those things now process through my brain in a way that they wouldn't have, 10 years ago kind of thing. But the big picture is still the easiest part.
Yeah.
Figuring out where this is going long term is a lot easier than what do we do tomorrow.
Right. And I hope that one day you and I will be able to work together on something, an event or something, because I'm completely opposite, where I can give you every little detail, but then I'm like, oh God, how do I put it together? I'm like, uh-oh. Like I've got all the little things, but I can't see that. Like I could see I guess I could see a big vision, but I have a really hard time putting details with the big vision. Like, how do we put them together now? So we would be unstoppable.
I think so. I absolutely think so. And I look forward to what we put together
Yeah.
when we work together. But
Yeah.
I think for me, the big picture is just so important because one of the main kind of things when I was thinking about how my business is going to look and what our kind of niches and what our stances and why we're different to other planners, I was going to all these business events and two things were happening. Either I would literally fall asleep because I have an issue with B12, and if I'm both really cold and really bored at the same time, I fall asleep like that.
Yeah.
Which is why many people in my life have thought that I have narcolepsy. I'm not. Surprise.
Fun fact.
But so that used to happen at quite a few events. Like I'd be sitting on the speaker and
yeah.
And it's not even like I want to. I actively fight
right.
it. So people love to watch. People tell me it's very funny to watch. So either that was happening if I was very bored, or if I was I'd have a great time. But I turn around and go, see, I don't understand how this is impacting your business. I don't understand how having this barbecue is making me more likely to become your client.
Right.
Kind of thing. And like, I like the idea of reaching out into the community and hosting a barbecue and giving people free ice cream. But how is that in turn making them more likely to use your services?
Right.
And if I couldn't see that connection, I'm like, why did we do this? So that was either what was happening. I totally understood the event and it was boring as all hell. And I'm like, why are you torturing me? Or it was, this is a lot of fun, but it makes no sense to me. And I wanted my clients to have both. I actually want everyone to have both, even if they're not my client.
Right.
Right. And I don't think anyone sets out to just be one or the other. I don't think that happens. But I think that it's missing in the strategy piece.
Right.
How does this play into our goals? How do we make sure our attendees enjoy it themselves and things like that? And something gets lost. Either they start with the goals piece and something gets lost along the way and we booked the wrong speakers, or our production flow was a mess or something like that. And the experience got completely taken off track. Or we focused so much on the experience that we left the strategy part at home.
Right. Right.
And so that was something I really wanted to focus on and have fortunately been able to do with my clients and sit down and say, what are our overarching goals? Okay, now we can fill in the details.
Yeah. I love that. I love it. Well, I want you guys to picture it. We're about to take a quick break, but while we're on break, I want you to picture it because I know some of you won't be able to imagine this in your wildest dreams. It's 2020 and the whole world shuts down and you have an events business. Okay. We'll be right back to hear that story in just a minute. Hang tight,
Great
everybody.
story.
Breakthroughs are about more than you might think. They're about discovering who you are, digging deep, reaching to the core of your soul. They're about healing yourself, understanding your beliefs, creating a ripple effect. And it's not just those initial moments that matter. It's about using them to bring more joy into our own lives and the lives of others. It's about having fun, letting loose, enjoying every moment life has to offer. It's about finding a safe space. It's about creating connection. Join us each and every day for exclusive programming, special events, and a community to call home. Where we invite you to explore, change the way you look at and live your life, and go beyond the breakthrough. So we ask you, are you ready? We'll see you online at thebreakthroughshow.com. Welcome back to My Way, conversations with entrepreneurs doing business outside the box. I'm here with my very special guest, Cari Brunton. Did I say your last name right? Because I thought about it afterwards and I'm like, I should have asked.
You did. It's one of those. It's funny because people get my last name right almost 100% of the time. It's my first name that trips people up.
Really? What do they say other than Cari?
So I get Cari, Carl. I get Carl all the time on all kinds of things because if the I is smudged or like really small and you can't very clearly see the dot, then it just looks like an elongated letter. So I don't blame people for that. I mean, it depends. Like it's usually like it's a good sign that you do not know me when you pick up the phone and go, "Hi, I'm looking for Carl Brunton." And I'm going to be like, "Yeah, my brother lives in Bermuda. Call him."
That's better than caller ID. That's like you just know. It's so funny because one of my brothers, his name's Gregory, and you would think that would be a really easy thing. He went to Starbucks and they wrote garage on his cup.
Okay, I know that one.
But he has this whole, literally everybody gets his name wrong. And he has this, it's a running joke on Facebook. He can't, because it's Gregory. It's not complicated, but here we are.
Yeah, like I especially don't fault people if they're looking at it like you cannot tell from spelling. Like if you're just seeing it written, like that could be Cari, that could be Cari, like whatever. Like I'm not gonna fault people for that at all. I do notice if after I know they've heard me say my name, if they keep calling me Cari, I do notice that.
Yeah.
And I also notice when they spell it wrong, which, you know, for the most part, I don't mind, but it's also one of those good hints on like LinkedIn, like, you're cold messaging me and you didn't even bother to check that you're spelling my name right. That's a good indication that I want to work with you right there.
Yep, that's fantastic. And sometimes I've gotten overconfident before, and then I'm like, oh, I probably should have asked. But I'm just glad that yours was easy. I set a scene before we went to break.
You did.
It's 2020. The world shuts down. You have an events business. No one's doing events. What do we do now, Cari?
Mostly cry in the corner. Not an exaggeration. Cry in the corner, rip my hair out, stare at the wall. A lot of that. A lot of that. Get deeply irritated when your partner starts working from home all of a sudden. All those things. So 2019 was my opening year. I was only working on live events. And so 2020 starts, and 2020 was said to be such amazing year. It's going to be phenomenal. My main client from 2019 has already renewed for 2 events for the year. I've just taken on a new client who does monthly events. So that's going to be a great source of revenue. I've just been, now they give me I receive a $5,000 grant to bolster my business and move forward. I'm feeling so good. And then February happens.
Yeah.
And, there's chatter about this COVID thing in China. And you're just like, okay, no, that's unfortunate. They should work on that. Then March break comes. And my business just implodes.
Yeah.
The world freezes. And at first it's okay because it's only going to be a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks tops. Right? We're just going to shut down and make sure everybody's staying healthy. We can manage that. It is not 3 weeks.
2 weeks to flatten the curve, Cari. 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Yes, that's exactly what they kept telling us. We just have to flatten the curve. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I didn't take high school biology, all that stuff. I don't. So like when it comes to that stuff, you know what? I'm okay with just listening to the experts, letting them tell me what to do. That's fine. Except it was not 2 weeks to flatten the curve. It was 6 months to flatten the first curve. And then we got to come out of hiding for like 30 seconds. And then we had to go back in here in Canada. And so at first it was kind of like the large mentality with my potential clients and that I kind of took on was you just got to ride this out.
Right.
You just got to ride this out. And I was very fortunate. I had government support programs to make sure that covered exactly my mortgage payment every month.
Yeah.
So I got to keep my house.
Yay.
But obviously as a business person, that was driving me insane and was incredibly stressful. And I so much difficulty in not knowing what I was doing and trying to bring in clients for virtual events, but they weren't coming because people were just going, we're just going to postpone our event. We're not going to bother doing it virtually. Yeah. Was what I was hearing a lot of. And so that was a very horrible and stressful period for me. And then thankfully all of a sudden people started asking me about webinars. And I was like, hey, do you work on webinars? Do you do the marketing for webinars? It's like, sure. Virtual event, like the principles of marketing and event are all the same. So let's go. And the only problem as I started to do that was then I went and watched the webinars. They weren't very good. Yeah. I was like, stop.
See, but that's super helpful. That's super helpful because ultimately when I started creating different shows for the network, I was watching other talk shows. Yes. I was watching other things and going, so this is what we're not going to do. And I won't be like that. And this is the kind of guests we're not going to have. So that's helpful, right? That's like good market research. You did
yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm glad. But so my then reaction was, I'm going to do this. Okay, I, as the little freak show that started public speaking when I was 4. And so I am not a train, let's be clear, but I am willing to be a freak show. And anyway, so I started public speaking when I was 4. So at this part I've done so many presentations in my life. I've presented in different other languages. I've presented in, different size groups and different stages and all these things. So I'm very, very comfortable talking to a camera, talking to an audience, all of it. And I was like, I got this. Let me show you guys how this works. And so I got up and I did my webinar and nobody bought a thing. And damn, did I eat foot. I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh my God, you thought you had this on lock. You thought you were just going to show up and show them all how it's done. You completely deserve this, you moron.
That was Leroy.
That was, in retrospect, that was Leroy. Cari would have been slightly nicer about it and would have said, okay, definitely stuck your foot in your mouth, but that's okay. We at least have a starting point. Yeah. So I did take that as a starting point. I said, you know what? Clearly everybody is going to need some help on this. And I, at the time, did not know a single other person who was niched into the webinar market and who was specifically helping people with their webinars. And I still haven't met many, but there is a good handful now that I've found. So I started studying and taking different courses and learning all kinds of things about sales psychology and presentation technique. and what specifically has to happen within the presentation before people are ready to buy and make a decision.
Mm.
All of these things that I understood would be the key elements of having a successful webinar.
Right.
And so after doing that for about 6 months, I turned around and came back and said, okay, let's try this again.
Mm.
And I'm proud to say that people then were like, yeah, and stood up and bought for me so that I can teach them how to do it more effectively. And so that's evolved and grown. And I now offer group coaching to teach people how to effectively use webinars. And it is the absolute joy of my day when I have clients come back and say, Cari, I made a sale, or Cari, I sold things, and I'm not stressed out about paying my mortgage and paying my bills this month anymore, because I now know how to do this, how to do it consistently. And so it has evolved and grown from there. And it's fun.
I love that. I love it. And it seems to me like, I'm sure. And I really hate when people say, like, listen to your story and they're like, oh, it was so easy for you. Or it was like, everything was just great, because I know as a human being, period, let alone an entrepreneur, that there are bumps along the way. But it really feels like for you, things happened how they were supposed to. Like, things just, it's like this, because if 2020 didn't happen, yes, you would still have your events business, but now you've got a whole other thing. And if the world goes to shit again,
I've got a plan, guys.
You're good.
Yeah. And you know what? I look back now and think, I love how it's come full circle. Because for a good while, it felt like two disjointed pieces, and I enjoyed doing them both, but I didn't necessarily see the flow between them. Other than that, there is production management is part of event management and webinars. And so it's been about 2 months now since my brain clicked it all together.
Yeah.
And so now, once my clients have done really well have figured out webinars, have learned how to do them, have been doing them effectively, I now teach them how to take that webinar, how to use it and speak to other groups. So whether it's networking groups or associations, or even to take it on stages at events, and then from there, how to host their own event. And so, and I can help them with the event aspect on that side. And so now it feels like it comes full circle, and I love that. And so I look back and go, I'm really grateful for it, because I think it really gave me a lot of hope. And to be honest, if I didn't have it, there's a decent chance I would have closed my business and just gone and taken a full-time job wherever I could have gotten it. And that would have been that. And RBE would have just been on the back burner for God knows how long. But because I had this hope and this other project to keep pushing forward on, I did. And I'm still here.
I love it. I love it. That's so good. Now, I know so you mentioned the meshing the two things together. And sometimes we have a lot of people that watch. We have a lot of people that host that are multi-passionate. We love a lot of different things. And it's been a whole journey for me to learn how to put those things together. Do you have any tips for people that might be struggling with that are like, I love this and I love this and I'm good at this, I'm also good at this? Like, how anything that helped them like put the pieces together?
I would say, like, pursue your interests. Like, I agree with you. I have a lot of interests. I have like a list of like 12 projects that I'm interested in considering starting right now. Like, I'm thinking about a podcast. I'm thinking about, a monthly recurring event. I'm thinking about a networking meeting, like all these things kind of thing. And so I would say only tackle one new thing at a time. I'm guilty of wanting to do everything at once as well. But then, I know there's a lot of us, right? It's that shiny syndrome. We want all the necklaces.
We literally both in our conversation yesterday had to say, we don't need one more thing right now.
Yeah, you don't need one more project right now, Jessica. You don't need another show right now. and that's an honest conversation you have to have with yourself. But I would say, don't limit yourself. Like, don't say I can't, because I don't see how these fit together right now.
Right.
Like, I've been a webinar coach since 2021. It was literally 2 months ago that I figured out how that fits in with my event planning business.
Yeah.
So sometimes just because the whole picture vision doesn't come to you right away doesn't mean you shouldn't keep going forward.
Right.
I'm a big believer of if it feels good and you're not hurting anybody, keep going. So, and I also think it's really important to let yourself just try things and try it.
Absolutely.
And if that doesn't work, that's okay. You can say you'll
Yeah.
try and you can move on to the next thing on your list.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
I love that. I think so. Like we have, I mean, have you ever felt like that in your own business where you felt almost like you're making yourself stuck? Like if I do this, like I had a little Leroy that was like, if you if you do this, you can't ever do anything else. Like if you commit to this, you can't do the other things. Leroy needed a cookie or something.
yeah, absolutely. I think we all get stuck into that. And
Yeah.
my big thing that I go back to is this works for now.
Mm.
And stressing the for now portion. I am a huge believer that nothing is truly permanent. The only things that are permanent are taxes. And I know that
By the
used to be
way, if you're
taxes,
in the
but like
United States, happy tax day.
yeah, absolutely. I'm in Canada, so it's not tax day, it's tax season. But I am proud to say I emailed my accountant last night, so I'm doing okay.
Hey, bravo.
Yay, progress. What I swear, one of these years I will have emailed her before April 1st. I will be doing so good that year. She will be so excited for me.
I love it.
but but yeah, I'm big on the for now. Like I
Mhm.
said, like when
Yeah.
I started my business, it was Brunton Events, but I knew that that was a for now. And I
Yeah.
wasn't going to sink a ton of time and energy into that name because I knew it wasn't going to last long, and that as soon as the right name felt good, that would go in, But Red Bucket Events still feels good for now. And if there's a time that it doesn't feel good anymore, guess what? It's getting changed. That's how
Yeah.
that's how it works and how it's allowed to work. I don't paint my nails thinking this is going to be, I have to commit to this color for the rest of my life. I think this is the color for now.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, like with aspects of business, I'm going to try this for now. I'm
Yeah.
not committing to this for the rest of my life, but for now, and feeling okay saying this didn't work, I'm done with it, or saying I want to keep going with this.
Yeah.
One of the things I always have struggled with so much in life is I'll start a book and try to force myself to finish it. And for
Mm.
a long time, I would do that, and but I would avoid reading because I wasn't having a good time with that book. But I couldn't stop because you have to finish the book. And
Yeah.
at some point, it just clicked in that, you know what, life is freaking short. Just throw the book out the window and pick up a new one.
Yeah.
Like I always think about at the end of my life, if I'm lying on my deathbed, I'm not going to regret not finishing Game of Thrones, the first
Yeah.
book. That's not going to be that. Like, I don't think that was anybody's moment. Was I didn't read that. I tried to read that book
Right.
and I didn't like it and I didn't get
Yeah.
into it. Because you know what? I gave up and I watched the TV show. And
Yeah.
so I'm fine. I'm fine.
You're fine. It's fine.
That is one of my stubborn tendencies. I tend to be like, I will not watch a movie or a TV show if there's a book and I haven't read the book yet. I tend
Oh, see,
to
I
stick to
tried
my
that.
I tend to stick to my guns on that pretty hard. And but I'm okay with that. I like doing that for the most part. Although I do know it annoys the crap out of some other people.
Yeah.
I remember this one
What do
time
you mean we can't go to the movie? You haven't
that has happened to me. Like my family all wanted to go see this movie, and I was like, I haven't read the book yet.
Yeah.
And they were like, and I was like, I haven't read the book yet. And so we ended up going to see a different movie, but they were annoyed with me. And then a week later, they're like, okay, now can we go see the movie? And I was like, nope. And they're like, oh, and they went without me, which I'm
Yeah.
glad. I don't want to be the thing that holds people back.
Listen, if you guys are live or on the replay, I want you to put "this works for now" in the chat because that's such a huge thing that can we just like take a breath on that for a moment, because so many of us are getting caught up and stuck on this has to be forever. We can't change it. We're afraid to move forward because what if it fails? What if it whatever? And it's such a good mantra. This works for now. So good, Cari.
It is, and it's not mine. I can't remember who I got it from, but I'm happy to pretend it's mine for now.
Yeah.
And take the credit on that. But yeah, so like I talked about starting a podcast, and I realized the thing that was stalling me was I've been brainstorming names, and I hit one name that I really liked, and then I looked it up and somebody's already using it. Business for breakfast, and I was like, oh, I love that. I love breakfast.
Yeah.
I can talk about waffles more often. This is going to be fabulous.
You could eat while you're on the live.
I could. I don't think that's going to work. There's a lot of chewing sounds going on. I don't think people are going to enjoy.
Yeah.
But I let that block me, and I realized, you know what? I know I don't have the name yet, but you know what? The name's going to come. I'm going to keep pushing forward. So I've set up a bunch of interviews with people who currently have podcasts that I want to pick their brains, and then I'm going to start scheduling interviews. Excuse me, that would actually be podcast episodes, and just figure the name out later.
Yeah.
It'll show up.
That's it. Yeah. But I mean, I'm all for that. And I tend to be someone who hangs on to things, so that this works for now is tough for me. Honestly, because I get real attached to things. So even if something's not like I'll hang on to the toxic things, and toxic people, even though it needed to be taken care of a long time ago, just because but it's always been this way kind of thing. And so I love that piece of thing. We only have a few more minutes, but I want to take just a couple of minutes. I would love for you to share just quickly what in your mind makes a great webinar.
Okay, a great webinar is an engaged audience. So I don't care how big your audience is. I do not care if only 4 people show up. And if you think that doesn't happen to the big kids, it does. My last webinar, 4 people showed up. Like, was I sad? Yes. Was I deeply questioning what on earth I did in my marketing to change this? Yes. Yeah. And then I said, okay, let's go anyway. So it matters that that audience is engaged. Are they writing in the chat? Are they answering the questions that you ask them? Are they participating in any activities you're presenting them with? Engagement is such a huge monitor for how you're doing, right? So that's the thing I need. I need value. I need to be giving my audience something that they can actually put into play. It doesn't have to be the biggest thing in the world. It honestly might be a 4-question assessment on how good are you, on how effective are your webinars right now, just so that they can start from an honest place. Or maybe it's 3 tips to get started with your webinars or make them better or anything like that. But I want you to be bringing actual concrete value. You are not actually there to just show up, talk about yourself, and say, this is how you buy from me. And then, of course, the last thing is a solid offer. One of the things I actually strongly encourage my clients to start with is don't make a direct offer, make an indirect one. Move them to a one-on-one call where you can chat with them.
Yeah.
That a lot of the times is going to be, you're going to have a much higher conversion rate, a rate of people who take you up on that.
Really?
Yes, because you offer the call, like because it's free, it's a smaller commitment step. But then you can still sell them from that chat. Like that's the point where you're selling them, right? It's just a different setting and it lets it be more one-on-one and more focused.
Right.
So especially if the idea of being salesy on a webinar makes you uncomfortable, move them to a chat.
Yeah.
And honestly, you need to do that anyway when you're selling bigger items. I generally won't sell anything over $5,000 on a webinar. Like anything, if your pricing's over that, then you need to move them to a one-on-one call anyway.
Yeah.
So you may as well do that. But yeah, so a great webinar is valued, is giving value, is very much is giving engagement, and it's built for the audience. This is the one that trips people up all the time, is they build it for themselves. They build it as a promotional platform. I want you to build it thinking about your audience every step of the way. What topic do they need to hear from me right now? What do they need to hear from me first so that they understand that I am an authority in this subject? Not what do I need to say to feel like an authority? What do they need to hear? And really building it from their perspective, which is why the very first thing I do with any of my clients is audience analysis. How do you break down your audience and understand them? Because once you understand your audience better, every step of the way becomes way easier.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Some great tips for our audience this evening. I hope you guys have taken some notes. We had a lot of really, really good golden moments here this evening. Things that I will remember forever for sure. And they will always run through my head with like a little lizard with a banner that says, this works for now.
Now, yes. What works for now? That, and the other thing is flash back to that deathbed thing and say, okay, if I'm on my deathbed, is this what I'm going to regret?
Right.
95% of the time the answer is no.
Yeah. I would love for you to take a minute and tell our audience where they can find you. I have your website that's going to go on the screen as well, where they can find you and what they can find when they go to your website as well, how they can work with you, stuff like that.
Absolutely. You can find me at redbucketevents.com. Or if you wanted to use Instagram, I'm at Red Bucket Events. You're going to, where if you're looking at my Instagram, you're going to find tips and tricks for events and webinars to make yours more impactful and have an easier time putting them together. If you're headed to my website, you're going to find all the details about my services, be they event planning or webinar training, as well as if you are specifically interested in using webinars for your business, you can join me next week, April 25th at 11 a.m. EST. We're doing a free masterclass called From Webinar to Paying Clients, how to grow your business with webinars. And I will share with you all kinds of fun tips and tricks to get you going.
Awesome. Awesome. I hope you guys definitely take advantage of that. Come check out. Obviously, because she teaches about webinars, her webinar is going to be epic. So you have to go check it out. It's like your business is like worked into what you do. Like you're giving a webinar, like you're teaching you. I see what you did there.
Yeah, it's always funny because people are like, "What's your webinar about?" Webinars. You're doing a webinar about webinar, and like you can get into a place where you say the word webinar about 78 times a minute. It just becomes webinar, 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 webinar. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm gonna go over there and not talk for a while. Okay, guys.
And with that, I have another show idea. So we have to go now. Brittany said this was great, Cari and Jessica. It's been a pleasure. So happy to have you guys here tonight. I saw a couple other people popping in and out. If you're on the replay, please be sure to leave us comments and stuff as well so I can go back and respond to those. And also let me know if you need to connect with Cari. I'm happy to do that as well. Cari, it was so much fun having you here tonight. I'm so thankful that you were able to do this, and I hope you'll come back again.
Thank you so much for having me. I'll come back and hang out with you anytime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, you guys, it's been another great episode. I want to remind you to do business your way. Don't let the outside chatter and the inside Leroy's tell you what to do. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas, and I'll see you next time on another episode. Bye, everybody.
Bye.